Hello, trailblazers and all leaders out there who want to make an impact. I want to spend today, which apparently is Leadership Day. And I don't know who comes up with international days, leadership, International Dog Day, Donut Day, or whatever. But apparently, this is International Leadership Day, or it's National Leadership Day, or it's coming up. So, one of the things I want to talk about with leadership is vulnerability. And there's all sorts of people talking about how leaders need to be more vulnerable. I'm not sure I agree with that. In fact, I disagree with that. And the reason why is there's a lot of different ways to be vulnerable. Some are laudable ways to be vulnerable, to, for example, admit your mistakes, admit that you don't know something. Those are all laudable, commendable vulnerability. And there's a lot of foolish ways to be vulnerable. So just telling leaders to be more vulnerable is not very good guidance. What we actually want is leaders to be more courageous. So it is very true that you don't display courage unless there is some sort of danger, unless there is some sort of vulnerability. But it doesn't mean just go out and willy-nilly be more vulnerable, because there's a lot of foolish ways to do that. What it means is showing courage when you are in difficult situations. For example, we expect leaders to show mental courage to make a decision and to see it through. We want leaders to show moral courage to stand up and exemplify the values of the company. And we want leaders to show social courage, emotional courage, to place themselves in situations where you're dealing with difficult interpersonal challenges, not just simply pawning that off on HR or somebody else. And then finally, we want leaders to show physical courage, sharing hardships, sharing danger with your employees. So you're not asking your employees to live in awful conditions while you are sitting in a lap of luxury. So all of those require you setting the example. And every time you set the example, you are vulnerable. This is smart vulnerability. You're placing yourself in danger because somebody can take a shot at you for your decision. They can take a shot at you if they feel that your actions and your words are not fully aligned. And so it reminds me a bit of leaders on horseback during the Civil War. Now, the reason why leaders were on horseback in the Civil War is not because they were lazy or privileged. In some ways, it was so they could see a little bit better. But the main thing is so they could be seen. They could be seen by their soldiers. Because if you have 1,000 people standing with rifles and you have one person on horseback, guess who the enemy's shooting at? The general. And what the general is saying, or the leader of that formation is saying, is I am the most vulnerable person on the battlefield. I made a decision to bring us here. I made decisions to position us favorably, as favorably as I could. I am standing right with you and explaining the why of what we're doing here. I am setting the example because everybody is shooting at me, and I'm standing here doing my job. So can everybody else. And that's why soldiers in the Civil War often fought so hard as they did. In ancient war, where you had the shield wall, the leader always stood not in the center, not in the back, but in the front right. And the reason why the leader stood in the front right is because you held your shield in your left arm and you had your spear, your sword in your right arm. And the beauty of the shield wall is that the shield protects half of your body and half of the body of the person next to you. The only one who is exposed, or has half their body exposed, is the person in the front right rank. That's why the leader always positioned themselves there to say, I am the most vulnerable person on the battlefield. I am showing the courage to do my job as the person who is in the greatest danger, and so can everybody else. You want to put yourself in a position where you are setting the example because that's going to require you to show the courage of your convictions, the courage to be open minded, the courage to set the example, and it's going to inspire the rest of your team to contribute their best.